And that was really what I originally said. I have no desire to go and just do a big shoot 'em up or do anything silly. I wanted to do something serious. And what I hit upon was, what if someone was attacking all the loved ones, all the family and friends of the world's most powerful superheroes?
Identity Crisis is probably one of the more controversial comics released by DC this millennia, dividing readers over its story, but it still remains a very popular miniseries and has had major consequences for the DC universe. Today I wanted to have more of an in-depth look at what makes it controversial. Before we have a look at some of the issues surrounding the story, let's have a reminder about the plot. Please note that the comic series, and by extension this video, has themes of sexual violence. Identity Crisis was a 7-issue miniseries written by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Rags Morales, and with Mike Bair doing the colouring. It starts off with Elongated Man, Ralph Dibny, and Firehawk on a stakeout. They fill the time in getting to know each other while they keep an eye out on some low-level criminals. Things quickly turn sour though as the deal goes down and one of the crooks, Bolt, is shot. At the same time as the guns are firing, Ralph gets a call from his wife Sue as she is being attacked. Elongated Man and Firehawk race to save her, abandoning the shooting. As readers, we see Sue's dying breath as her body is then set alight with a flamethrower. Ralph rushes into his home, flooded by sprinklers, only to find Sue's lifeless body. The hero community rallies round Ralph, helping the only way they know how to catch the killer. Different teams form and head off to question and apprehend potential suspects. A group remains behind, however, after Sue's funeral to speak to Ralph. Green Arrow, Zatanna, Hawkman and Black Canary, with Elongated Man, have to find the man who ruined Ralph's life, Dr. Light. Atom joins this group after making sure his ex-wife Jean is safe by arming her with a crossbow. Ray's not the only one to join the gathering, as Kyle Rayner and Wally West sneak in to find out exactly what the group is up to before being discovered. It transpires that whilst on a mission, their JLA satellite orbiting Earth was left heroless, empty except for Sue Dibny. Dr. Light had managed to get aboard the satellite on an unknown mission, but seeing Sue, changes his plans and decides to attack and rape her. The Justice League arrive too late to rescue Sue but subdue Dr. Light. Leaving Ralph unaware, the heroes make the decision to not only wipe Dr. Light's memory but to alter his personality through Zatanna's magic to stop him from doing anything like it again. Back in the present, the Justice League confront Dr. Light, fighting Deathstroke, just about managing to defeat him. But the battle causes Dr. Light to have flashbacks, remembering what the Justice League did to him, and he escapes with Deathstroke. In the aftermath, Green Arrow confides that there had been other mind wipes of villains, but Dr. Light had been the first personality change. This, at the time, caused a rift amongst those who knew about it, as each had different ideas on how best to protect their loved ones. Cut to a scene of Jean, Ray's ex-wife, in a struggle where she is being hanged from a rope, with the Atom just arriving in time to save her, an action that will bring them closer together again. Just like at the scene of the murder of Sue Dibny, there is no evidence. The heroes continue to bicker about how to approach this, and Lois gets an anonymous letter saying they know her husband is Superman, causing an increase in the heroes' efforts. One confrontation ends up with Firestorm killed, stabbed in the belly by Shadow Thief, and forced to explode high up in the atmosphere. Tim Drake's dad receives a similar note to Lois, although his is accompanied by a gun. The note is followed by Captain Boomerang entering Robin's home, there on a mission from an unknown villain to kill Jack. He's met by a terrified Jack wielding the gun. Both are killed in the confrontation. Another flashback and we see the fateful night Dr. Light entered the Justice League satellite. It transpired Batman had returned to find them altering Light's mind. His rage was uncontrollable and Zatanna had to stop him. And yet again there was a vote. This time, the heroes vote to wipe Batman's memory too. Back at the Justice Society headquarters, during the forensic analysis on Sue, Dr. Midnight discovers tiny footprints in her brain. It wasn't the fire that had killed her, but damage to her brain. The Atom, back together with Jean, discusses the recent happenings. Jean lets slip a detail unknown to anyone except a few of the JLA and the killer. Jean admits to borrowing one of Ray's old costumes and accidentally killing Sue in an attempt to get back together with him. She then facilitated the death of Jack Drake, sent the note to Lois and faked her own attack. Ray ships her off to Arkham.
It's very simple. If you didn't wear a mask, villains would go and slit the throats of your wives and your husbands and your children. And that is why you wear a mask, and that is why you hide your identity. And so from that one idea, we really built the whole concept of identity crisis. What if there was a serial killer going after the loved ones of our heroes?
So, let's talk about some good bits first, because there are some. I'm a fan of the art. In every panel, you can tell almost exactly what a person is feeling just from Morales' work. He has a great talent for depicting emotion, but the most powerful scene, obviously, is Ralph literally falling apart at the funeral. Some of it might feel slightly dated now, but I still really enjoy this book visually and feel that the artwork carries the emotional weight of the story. One such scene, as an example, is the aftermath of Jack Drake. Tim looking like a little boy again is really powerful. I also really like Meltzer taking on the idea of a two-tier Justice League, with the likes of Batman and Superman not helping much with the cleanup. Instead, there's always another threat they have to face. I think it's a really interesting dynamic that adds a layer of realism for readers. In every workplace there's a hierarchy, and it makes sense that this would be the same at the Justice League too. Although, why doesn't anyone go help Batman in Gotham? That place is messed up. I also thought it was a really great touch having a criminal call an ambulance for Bolt, guy shot at the beginning, whilst Elongated Man and Firehawk fly off. It just adds complexity to background characters, just fleshing out the world a bit more, although obviously it wasn't the most heroic look for Firehawk and Elongated Man. It fits in with Meltzer's more morally grey world. I also really enjoyed the idea of the villains being a close community, hanging out and chilling. I would genuinely love a series that was just based on that bar. I mean, who wouldn't want to read that? And now we'll go on to the bad bits. We'll get some more obvious ones out the way first. So, a bad fight scene. Deathstroke takes on the Justice League by himself, causing Flash to run into a sword, breaking Kyle's fingers, nullifying his ring, and pelting Atom with the light particles from a laser pointer. I think if we're honest with ourselves, although this one seems a little ridiculous, comic fights are quite often pretty silly, making little sense, so I'm willing to forgive this one, although I know a lot of people aren't. The next one is less forgivable. Jean Loring has a flamethrower. Having killed Sue, Jean takes a flamethrower to Sue's body to hide her involvement by destroying evidence. Why does she have one? She mentions picking up weapons just in case things went badly, but really, what was she thinking? And doesn't this undermine everything about her accidentally killing Sue? Speaking of Sue, a lot of people feel that she got fridged. The term fridging, or women in refrigerators, was coined by Gail Simone for women in comics who were killed or maimed as a device to move other male characters' narratives forward. The fridge reference is due to an infamous 1994 Green Lantern story where Kyle finds his girlfriend's body in a fridge. You could certainly make a strong case for it here, as Sue's murder sets up the plot and we never hear from her point of view about the assault from Dr. Light, not through flashbacks or anything. Is this a fair criticism of a series written almost 20 years ago? I think so. As these discussions were happening then and before too, you only need to see that the Women in Refrigerators website was created in 1999 to realise this. A lot of fans also feel that there is a lot of character assassination. For example, could you really see Barry Allen going along with the mind wipe? Could you see a unanimous vote for wiping Batman's mind? And the story obviously had massive implications for Zatanna's character as well. And speaking of assassinations, poor Firestorm. It had no impact on the story at all, and it just felt a bit disrespectful for a long-time leaguer. Fans don't like it when you mess with characters they have invested in, especially for no obvious reason. At the time of publication, Brad Meltzer had also written a Green Arrow series, which is pretty good, but you couldn't call him a regular comic book writer, although he was an accomplished author. This bit is a bit more speculative, but I think a lot of the previously mentioned aspects could have been avoided with a bit more guidance from the editorial team. and may even have been second nature to most comic book writers who are used to working with complicated continuities and characters with long histories. The problem was, this hands-off approach was a marketing decision. Meltzer states in an interview with CBR that to ensure that there were no leaks of the story, the plot and script were kept secret, even internally, which probably then meant there was very little editorial oversight. But that's not necessarily Meltzer's fault. What I think can be laid more at Meltzer's feet is that it isn't a very good detective/mystery story in which it's made out to be, particularly as he's a thriller writer.
And I'm amazed it took me as long as it did to say, well, why don't I do a mystery? Because that is what I do for a living. My own comic store owner, where I've shopped since I'm 13 years old, and he said to me, people just love to guess.
The conclusion that it was Jean all along just kind of happens, and there's no real payoff. No one read that book and went, called it, I knew it'd be Jean. Oh, that makes so much sense about the flamethrower. Jean just doesn't have the motivation to do it, and the idea that she was insane just seems a bit lazy. Thankfully, we've never had to deal with women be crazy tropes in popular culture ever again. And one last thing, for those who've been paying attention, you may remember from that second NPR interview in the middle of the video that Meltzer says this is all about secret identities, but it turns out the killer is a loved one. That doesn't seem to make any sense at all to me. So why did I want to look at this story in more depth? Mainly just because it intrigues me. Reading the average post on Reddit or other comic book sites and forums about Identity Crisis, you would feel this series is universally disliked and hated, but it's not. Look at reviews on Amazon and you'll find loads of very positive reviews, and that's okay. But there seems to be a disconnect between what casual and more invested readers want. It's probably why Identity Crisis has remained a good seller for DC as a story. Full disclosure, the first time I read Identity Crisis I really enjoyed it. However, when I first read it, I was in my teenage years, I was relatively new to comics and definitely new to DC outside of Watchmen and Superman and Batman. Had an edgier side to it that appealed to me, but more importantly, I didn't know most of these characters. I had no clue who the likes of Elongated Man was, let alone Sue Dibny. I had no relationship to them. Like it was for me, I think that this story is a decent jumping on point for a lot of new readers, offering something they might not have expected to read. But for long-time readers, it comes as a bit of a shock. I think that somewhere in there is a really good idea and great miniseries. I know people don't like mind wipes or mind control, as they're often an overused and messy trope, but as an idea for heroes doing morally challenging things in the context of their perceived idea of the greater good, or protecting their loved ones, it makes for an interesting idea. Put some of these plot points with another writer and this might have been a really excellent book. Lastly, it probably would have worked better if it was outside of the main continuity, maybe left as an Elseworlds story, meaning there was no future ramifications and it remained an enclosed story, although I know a lot of people actually like the retcon efforts in the years after. But hey, these are just my ramblings. It's not the worst comic ever, but definitely one of the most controversial. What do you think? Too harsh? Or did I miss something?